I received my master's degree at Vanguard University, and today we get to speak with the department chair of the theater arts, Susan Berkompas. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Congratulations on everything that's going on at Vanguard right now. The theater department I recently started paying attention to when we started covering live theater. And I said, I went to this school, I got my master's at this school, might as well actually pay attention to them now that I'm covering theater. And you've been there going into your third decade at this point, having been an instructor there and now the department chair. Take us back on how the position came about for you.
Yes, this is my 27th year, and I can hardly believe that it's gone so fast. Uh, well, I think I was just turning early 30s and I saw this was, before internet was a big thing. We were on the internet, but it was just kind of starting out. And I saw the job posted and I thought to myself, oh, I'll never get it because I'm probably too young and not enough experience under my belt. At that point, I had just gotten my MFA in acting and directing, and I had been doing a lot of freelance in both acting and directing, and really getting a lot of good professional gigs, just kind of starting that career and having kids at the same time. Um, so yeah, I just applied for it, then went on several interviews and I got the job. And so after, I've been chairing the department for 27 years. So I walked in as chair and I walked into a department that needed to be built from the ground up. And it had, I think, 8 majors, if I'm correct. And so they were all girls. And so we did Little Women for our first show. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster, mostly all great. We got the dips and the valleys in there, but that's life. And yeah, here we are 27 years later, and um, I created our American Coast Theater Company, professional theater in the summer, and our theater majors intern for that, and they do all the behind the scenes um, jobs and learn how to work with other professionals, and then they have kind of that bridge between academia and professional theater that's nice for them to get that experience and to have that on their resume. So yeah, I did everything I wanted to do, and I'm just having a ball.
And you built a program from the ground up that only had 8 majors to well more than 100. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but the campus of Vanguard University only houses about what, 5,000 students altogether between undergrad and graduate?
That may be correct. I don't know, but that sounds correct.
But I know it's not, as if it was Cal State Long Beach with 36,000 students. So the numbers aren't as high. So when you have a number like that per capita, it seems, quite nice for the school to have a theater program. How did
Yes.
American Coast come about? Because this is your professional theater group that also performs with a student body, and you have your shows during the summer that kind of keep everything alive while school's not in session.
Correct. So, ACTC, we have one Christmas cabaret during right after our Vanguard Christmas show. And so sometimes most of the time we use alumni. We don't typically use students in our Christmas cabaret. And then for ACTC shows, those two shows, we also use outside people, outside professionals, and any alumni that would fit the bill, and be great for whatever roles. So the students don't typically perform with ACTC until after they graduate. And once in a while, if we're looking for a college age character, then and somebody's available and not in another show, and local to Southern California, because in the summer everyone goes away. Once graduation hits, all the students go away, of course. So yeah, it's always been one of those things where it is separate, but under the umbrella of Vanguard University. Yeah, it came about in 2008. 2008, our inaugural season was A Streetcar Named Desire. And, it's one of those things where I knew that if I took on the position as chair of the theater department at Vanguard University, that I wouldn't have a lot of time to do all my professional stuff. And I wanted to be able to marry the two, so that the students could get the benefit of having that professional company on board, and I could get, my professional development and get that area of my life, get that professional fix that I needed, because I knew I wouldn't be able to travel anymore, or very much. A little bit, I've done a little bit here and there, but it really is an all-encompassing job at Vanguard, being chair, teaching classes, directing shows at Vanguard. And then, so I just knew that if I wanted to be able to also have that professional thing on the side, I would need to marry the two together. And so that's what I did. And it took 2 years to do. It wasn't easy. I needed to gain people's trust. I needed to be able to go through all of the logistics. At one time, it was a separate 501c3. So, I needed to get a board. It was all those things. So it wasn't easy, but thankfully it turned out great.
And here we are with the next show being Footloose, premiering on Thursday, February 20th. So how does the ebb and flow of all of this between having ACTC as the professional side, then the student performances as part of the Vanguard curriculum, find the balance between the two, and then deciding on the shows? Because some shows don't necessarily seem as Christian as they would for a Pentecostal school like Vanguard University, Assemblies of God, versus others that would seem a little more appropriate. How do you find the balance of writing that line?
That's a really great question. It's hard because all of the contemporary musicals and shows that the students want to do, they want to do the stuff that's playing right now, that's viable right now in the culture and that everybody else is doing. And yet, some of those shows don't quite line up with the mission of Vanguard University. So it's just a lot of careful dissecting and planning, and working with the president of Vanguard just to make sure everybody is on board. And the decision brings in many variables. It's, as you can imagine, it's difficult. We just have to stay away from certain areas of our culture. We got to stay away from all the F-bombs. We get, we've got to choose story that that makes sense with our Vanguard mission statement. It's difficult sometimes, it really is, but I always try to choose a story that is extremely human, that is moving, that tugs at your heartstrings, that allows people to make choices, that allows the audience to ask questions, and that doesn't, spoon feed them the answers. But sometimes we just do we end up doing fun and silly farces, that doesn't offend anybody, but even a farce is going to offend somebody. All theater is going to offend somebody. So I try not to think of it in those terms. I just try to choose a story that I can get behind, that I love, that I think my audiences will love. And I just kind of leave it at that. I really don't want to politicize anything that we do. I just want to bring joy to our audiences, our patrons, our community. And that really is the bottom line. I want to be able to be a blessing to them. And I don't want to politicize what we do at Vanguard.
Whereas I'm just about to pitch a politicized idea for Footloose for you. So, but find all the professors that are very much in line with Ulrich Zwingli's theology and his behavior during the Protestant Reformation of no music in church, and then have them come protest Footloose, siding with Reverend Shaw Moore's character.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Reverend in Footloose, he has a really nice character arc, and he goes through a really great change. And he comes, I'm not going to ruin the end for people who haven't seen it, but
The movie
um,
came out in 1984. I
yeah,
think we can spoil some of it.
I know and it was a huge, huge hit. Um, yeah, I mean, Nikki Snelson, our guest director for that show, she's handling it with a lot of care and love. And people are people, no matter what their faith is, or if they are agnostic or whatever. Um, People are just people, and they all have hearts, and they all have thinking minds, and they can do with it what they will. But I think they're going to find our Footloose um, really well directed and really crafted well, where it doesn't show any kind of cliche or stereotype of either side of the Reverend, of the town. There's a big character arc, and there's a lot of learning, and it's got fantastic 80s music. It's fantastic.
Kenny Loggins was the king of the soundtracks from, I think,
It
what,
was.
77 to 88. So,
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, he's had quite a few hits. Danger Zone always plays every time someone mentions Top Gun. So,
Yeah. I loved him. No, it's got great music, and Nikki's choreography is second to none. So she's a big Broadway star. So I'm super excited to see this. I've seen snippets of it already. The audiences are gonna love it.
you know, faith-based films, we're going to touch on film before we get back to the theater aspect of it, have really come a long way. Angel Studios primarily has done some incredible things. The people that did God's
Yeah.
Not Dead did a psychological thriller with Nefarious. And then, there's even Mel Gibson doing faith-based films with some questionable language at times, but that's human nature. How do those faith-based films now attract faith-based plays without being, if you remember, like the faith-based films from the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, where it's like, guy got out of jail, life's miserable. Here's one biblical passage, and now he's saved and everything's okay, and all of a sudden he's the lead minister of a church. And you're like, wait a minute, where did like this redemption arc come from? To where we'll see something like Sound of Hope from Angel Studios about that small town in Texas where these families took in 77 foster children and raised them up to becoming upstanding members of society. Like, how does Christian theater evolve now that Christian cinema has evolved?
Well, I'll tell you what, in my perspective, I don't know what Christian theater is. Um, I guess if you go to a church and you see, you see something play out dramatically, during Christmas or Easter, then obviously, some kind of a passion play, or then obviously that would be Christian theater. But that isn't what we do at Vanguard. We just do theater, and we are Christian artists who do what everybody else is doing, and hopefully we do it really, really well. Um, but as far as Christian theater in general, there's some really cool companies that are traveling right now, that are touring, doing some really great stuff. Can't I don't know if you saw Screw Tape Letters at Irvine Barkley this past year. It comes around every couple of years.
I didn't get a
Max
chance to watch
McLean.
it, but okay.
Oh, it's probably the best play I have ever seen. It was so well done with C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape um, um, book, adapted to the stage. And, it was brilliantly acted, it was brilliantly adapted, and it was so moving and thought-provoking. And I was way up in the balcony. I usually can't stand sitting far away if I'm going to go see theater. But it was phenomenal on every level, and it really was the best play I've ever seen. So, you know, when you're seeing things like that, then it really gives me hope that yes, you know, like Christian music, Christian arts, you know, like this Max McLean production of Screw Tape Letters, if we can do more of that, I'm all in. I just don't want to do cheesy church drama.
Mhm.
I said it. I just don't want to
No,
do
say
that.
it, please, because I call it that
Yeah.
as well. And then there's a lot of,
Yeah.
mega churches and certain evangelical churches that I refer to as concert Christianity or dessert Christianity, where they
Yeah.
want all the works of salvation without having to do anything for it. You know,
Yeah. So, you know, if we're going to compete in that arena, we have to be as good or better than what everybody else is doing, or don't do it.
right. I was there for the Christmas Cabaret. It had that very 1960s, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra Christmas special where the families come over and then go into the songs and stuff. How long have you been doing the Christmas Cabaret, and how did that show come about since we've just passed Epiphany and, we're getting into the Lenten season very soon, getting ready for Easter?
Well, I've been doing the Christmas Cabaret from the first year. I think we started it already in 2000, maybe 2009 or 2010. I think it goes back that far, but every year it started out as a fundraiser kind of thing where we didn't really play the players because it was a fundraiser. But I just love the throwback of the variety show, you know, the 1970s variety shows. I am a sucker for those. And this is coming from one who doesn't really like all that cheeseball stuff. But I fully admit I am a sucker um for all of those 70s, you know, the Cher show, remember the Sonny and Cher show, Donnie and Marie show. I mean, all of those 70s variety shows, and it started even earlier than the 70s. It was coming around in the 60s, and you know, the Rat Pack and all of those guys. I just loved all of that. It just felt always so homey and just so warm. And that's the environment that I wanted to set up for a Christmas cabaret. So,
Uh, and it worked. It worked quite well. It was quite an enjoyable show. One person's mic was a little too hot throughout the performance of the night that I saw it, but other than that, that was my only complaint with the show.
yeah, we kind of, you know, that mic thing is a little bit glitchy sometimes. Sometimes somebody's too hot, and it's really it's really a difficult thing to keep. Oh, how do I want to say this? It's it's a difficult technical position. You know, they have to be really, really experienced and talented at mixing. Mixing is a whole other thing in and of itself. And we've got some great people in our tech program that are doing it really, really well. Part of it is our theater, and we're trying to figure out the adjustments, you know, of the speakers and all of that. But yeah, once in a while you're going to have a mic that's too hot.
Yeah, I could hear her breathing through the mic, and I was just like, "Oh, that one's a little too hot."
Yep,
Got it. Um,
yep.
yeah. Well, take us through the theater itself. The seating for the theater. How many people does it seat? What can we expect when we
Okay.
come to a show at Vanguard University?
Well, it seats, I'm going to say 174-ish, maybe closer to 100 and yeah, I'd say 174 or something like that. We took out a bunch of seats to expand the band loft. So now we can get more band members in that loft. So, and we've got wheelchair accessible as well. Yeah, it's a three-quarter thrust intimate theater, and it's a fabulous intimate space. Your actors can't lie in that space. They have to be dead honest with their characterizations, and that's how I teach as well. I think an intimate space is the best training space to train your actors in, because they cannot lie. Um, they cannot go over the top without it being specifically meant stylistically to be over the top. They have to tell the truth on stage.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a fun question for my personal knowledge. All right.
Okay.
We're as a performer and as a theater goer, what's one musical you would be happy never to see again? And as a professor, what's one musical or play that you would be thrilled if a student never suggested again?
Oh gosh, that one is so loaded.
We're
Um,
trying to get you in trouble just a little bit.
one that I would be very happy if I never saw it again. Well, my whole background is Shakespeare, straight plays, and then I did some musicals as an actor who sings. I did some musicals. So I love classical theater and all things classics, and I love musical theater. I love it all. So as far as musical theater that I would never maybe want to see again ever, um, hmm, that might be something like, oh, gosh. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Okay.
Whoa, that one is way, way, way in the dark lands, out in left field. And we did it actually some years back, but you realize how backwards some of that early stuff is and how messed up it is. These guys kidnap these girls all in good fun, and they won't let them go until they agree to marry them. So that's like, we were in too far when we realized, oh no, not going to, this is not going to hit the same as it did, in the early 1980s even, or 1970s. It's not going to hit the same as it did back then.
Right.
So we have to stay clear of some of those musicals that just don't um they aren't culturally relevant anymore, and there's no way to make them culturally relevant.
Right. Okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because didn't the
What
movie
about
come
you?
out?
What's
Oh,
the one that you don't want to see?
all right. So I am not a big horror fan. And although I recently started covering music, like, okay, so this is different. So movie wise, will be Rocky Horror Picture Show because I don't like horror movies and I don't like movie musicals. So the combination of the two puts
Oh.
Rocky Horror Picture Show on that. A very close second, and it's a tie between live theater and the film, is Grease. And I know you just did Grease, and I didn't come to the performance for that one, but Grease. And Frankie
Oh,
Valli's phenomenal, and the song from the movie Grease by Frankie Valli
yeah.
is fantastic. The rest
Yeah.
of the movie and the musical itself, no, that is on my list
You're
of no.
done.
Yeah,
You're done with Grease. I
like,
know other people who are done with Grease as well.
yeah. I mean, I can handle horror movies to an extent,
Yeah.
uh, and I just do not like movie musicals. But the
Yeah.
combination of horror and musical as a film, just same with Sweeney
No.
Todd. Like the stage performance of Sweeney Todd, no problem watching, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but my introduction to Sweeney Todd was a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's this Johnny Depp movie coming out. It's kind of this gothic horror. You want to go?" I said, I got nothing better to do." And the music starts playing. I was like, "Oh, I like the score." And they start singing instantaneously. And you hear me bellow from the back of the theater, and I actually dropped an F-bomb. This is an effing musical, because he knew I wouldn't have gone if I had known it was a movie musical.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So Sweeney Todd is a live performance, no problem. Movie musical version, no. And
So
Grease,
what about
yeah.
Wicked? You haven't seen Wicked?
I hated Wicked. I absolutely hated Wicked. All right. That movie was 2.5 hours and there's a part two coming? No.
Did you see it?
I did. I saw the movie and it was terrible because they could have gotten the whole story done in one
You
3 hour
are
movie.
you are
Like,
hilarious.
yeah.
I do agree with that. I agree with that, that they should have done it in one concise movie as opposed to two parts. Um, but you're in the minority. The world is in love with the movie
Listen,
Wicked.
the movie can love
I had to
the
see it
love it. Yeah.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Animated musicals, no problem. Live action musicals, totally different. But for stage, I don't have a problem with musical theater because it's in
Yeah.
person. There's the suspense of
Yeah.
disbelief.
Yeah.
We're there as an audience member, almost in participation of
Yeah.
it because you'll hear us laugh, you'll hear us snicker, you'll hear us,
Yes. You're right.
gasp. So
Yeah,
it's
I
almost
agree.
audience participation with that.
Yeah. No, there is nothing that will substitute or steal from live theater. There just isn't anything like live theater. You're breathing together, you're seeing the sweat 2 feet away sometimes, on the actors. There isn't anything like it. Yeah.
What was your draw to live theater that made you go so far as to not only get your MFA in it, but become a professor on top of it? Like there had to have been a show that was the catalyst to sit there and go, I got to be a part of this. And I'm pretty sure it's not Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Yeah.
Oh, well, I wrote my first play in fourth grade in Great Falls, Montana, and I'd never seen a play. There were no plays in Great Falls, Montana, but it was story. It was that idea of storytelling, you know? And I loved the whole idea behind storytelling. You see that biblically, although I wasn't introduced to the Bible and Christ till many, many, many years later, but um, I just love the idea of story and moving people, um, creating fantasy for people, creating diversion for people, and just getting people to feel and to think and all of those things. The imagery, I love the imagery associated with putting a story together, and then live theater. I got into that in high school, and I never looked back. I was in competitive um, drama teams, and then I got a BFA in acting and directing in my undergraduate degree, and then just kept going with it. I tried to get out of it after well, in college, I switched majors 3 times, and then I just realized, oh, I love this. What am I doing? I don't, I don't want to be a lawyer, and I don't want, I just want to be a theater artist, and we'll see where that takes me. And then I realized, oh, I can get an MFA. I can do professional theater, and I can be a professor somewhere as well if I'm good enough and if I work hard enough. And so all those things did happen.
And here you are, the department chair in the College of Arts and Sciences. Let's go into the program a little bit at Vanguard University because, maybe somebody's watching this and is interested in getting a degree in the arts and they haven't quite figured out where they want to go. Let's talk a little bit about the musical theater department and then the technical production department. Like,
Yeah.
you know, how, fill us in on those programs.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, it is a Christian university, so you have to at least, if not a practicing believer, you have to at least be open to all of those things, because there's much more to the university than just your major. So, there's university core courses equivalent to gen ed classes, and then you've got your major requirements, and then your concentration. So our theater department has 3 concentrations. It is musical theaters our biggest, then our technical concentration, and then our stage and screen acting slash directing concentration. Um, so yeah, one of the hallmarks of our programs is that we are NAST accredited, the National Accreditation for Schools of Theater. And we are only one of maybe 3 Christian universities in the nation that have that accreditation. It's a mark of excellence, and it's a bar that we have to, maintain every single year. And uh, the other thing is it is a small boutique university, and so if you come to Vanguard and you study theater arts, you're going to get one-on-one coaching, one-on-one teaching. Our classes are really small. You learn a lot. You get on stage a ton. And you leave with almost the equivalent of a master's degree as far as performance goes and what you've learned, because it's so much one-on-one attention. We have private courses that we offer: private acting, private dance, private voice lessons, and nobody offers those. Only private voice lessons. No, none of the big schools, none. I've never even heard of private acting lessons or private dance lessons. Nobody offers that, but we do. It's really that one-on-one experience, and then um, our boutique lower numbers allow students to get on stage a lot.
And so there's
So
more
yeah,
there's more performance for the students, putting on multiple hats and multiple
more performance
characters.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've also just started this educational touring little company. It's a class, and so now we've got 8 students in that class, and they're touring to local high schools and performing Shakespeare. So it's just really a cool thing. It's always been this boutique um, environment and culture, and I just wouldn't have it any other way. I just love it.
What does acting for stage versus acting for theater look like for people that aren't familiar with the differences?
Acting for stage, it's
Versus
the same.
acting for film. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Acting for stage
okay.
versus acting for film.
Okay. So it's really, we call it screen to encompass television and film. So yeah, we try to incorporate all the things associated with, acting for film or for screen is a dialed down version of acting for stage. It's not a different kind of acting. It's just a matter of scale. It's how much you give versus how little you give, and how little you need to give, because it's all said in the face, or it should all be said, behind your eyes, and the thought process that goes, into the character's thought process. It's just a different scale than what you would give on stage. On stage, it's much more physicalized. You still have all that thought process. It's the same, and the quality should never change, but it's just sometimes the scale of what you're doing. You don't need to do a lot physically for acting for the screen, but for stage, you do. We come to see that. We don't come to see talking heads on the stage. We come to see a character fully connected physically. And I am a very physical director. I like physicality.
And what about schools of thought? I mean, there's Sanford Meisner, there's so many different other schools. There's method acting, there's pulling from your own
Yeah,
ideology and past. How do you find the balance between these different schools of thought? Does that vary
yeah.
from professor to professor or class to class? Because,
Well,
performers different.
yeah, that's such a great question. Boy, you are good. So I teach the tiered acting classes, acting 1, 2, and 3. We also have acting for the state, or acting for the screen, classes 1, 2, and 3, and I have other adjunct professors teaching that. We also have improvisation, all kinds of different acting classes. So the acting 1, 2, and 3, everybody takes those, and I teach a plethora of technique through all of them. I start in acting 1 with an introduction to Stanislavski, the methodology, and Uta Hagen, which, she's very Stanislavski based, but she kind of has her own bent, on her own angle on what she emphasizes. So we go through that in acting 1 and acting 2, which is what I'm teaching this semester. We start with Sanford Meisner technique, and then we go into Michael Chekhov technique, which is completely opposite. Meisner is working from the inside out, or Stanislavski methodology is working from the inside out. And Michael Chekhov is working from the outside in, from a physical place, and then working inward to the inner life of the character. So you want to get to the same place with every technique. That's the key. You want to get to the same place. And we don't want to see your technique. We want to see great, truthful, dynamic acting that doesn't look like acting. So, and then in acting 3, we flesh out Stanislavski's methodology even further than what we did in acting 1. We go deeper.
All right. And
Yeah.
now we're going to give away a poker secret, I think is the best way I could describe this.
Okay. Oh
When a
no.
student is late with a paper,
Yeah.
how do you know when they're acting versus when they're being sincere in their delivery of said late paper?
It's all there. I teach body language in acting 3. I have a whole unit on body language. During COVID lockdown, I studied that whole team of body language experts, where they dissect crimes and they dissect criminals and other people. And I read The Power of Body Language inside and out. Huge on body language. So um, you can see it. You can see it.
All
You
right.
can see it in their body language
Yeah.
because the words lie, but your body does not.
And it is an acting school, so they are going to learn how to act and try to be proficient. So we want to see how much they're going to try to get over on the professors.
Yeah, when they're trying to, these students are so awesome. We don't really have too much of a problem with that. Definitely after COVID lockdown, I saw I saw more troubled students coming in, more um, anxiety-ridden students for sure. Anxiety is a real thing, and it's really flowing high in this generation. Um, so, we give them a bunch of grace. And then if the grace has run out because they're taking advantage of it or just can't meet it, they just can't do it. They're not equipped to do it, then we have to take the next course of action. But, I don't really have too many issues with this. And if I catch somebody just, bold-faced lying, looking me in the eye, um, I would probably in the past call them out pretty aggressively. And now, I just kind of
Send
figure
them
it
to
out
chapel.
and send them to chapel. Yeah, thankfully our students just are for the most part, they're just really great people. They really are. And they're willing to cop to the truth. They're willing to say, look, I just didn't do it. I'm really sorry. I just didn't do it. So, and that's what I respect the very most is when they just say, yep, you gave me that grace. I'm so sorry. I just didn't do it. And I'm willing to pay the consequences. We have a lot of that.
See, we got to put you a little bit on the spot. We can't be talking all technical stuff right now.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
uh,
for sure.
I did notice that one of the adjunct professors teaches stage combat, which I think some
Yeah,
people would be interested in.
yeah,
Um, it's funny. So this is my problem with live musical theater
yeah.
is the dance fighting scenes. Because I will sit there and I will watch, Chinese ballet,
Yeah,
and it's this interesting combination of the fluidity of kung fu with dance that
yeah.
looks quite realistic for
Ah,
cinema. And then you'll watch Western dance fighting, and you're just like, I cannot wrap my head around this. And it's also because I came from a wrestling background and I've covered mixed martial arts and boxing
mm,
and kickboxing that I know what real fighting is like. And then when I see it on
yeah.
stage, it just, there's a glitch in the system that like it doesn't compute. Like it almost makes me start twitching. How do we kind of shift that to more that Eastern style of making it look more realistic instead of almost hokey in American productions of dance fighting? Like West
Well,
Side Story would be
yeah,
totally
I was going to
hokey
say
dance
West
fighting.
Side Story.
Yeah.
West Side Story is hard because, and everything relies on your distance of your audience between your audience and your actor. If you're on a big stage, proscenium arch stage with a, anywhere from 300 to 1,000 spectators, you're pretty far away from the actors unless you're, right there in the first couple rows. But even that, you just kind of feel removed. The stage is big. They have a fly system. They have a deep stage, that you can do so much more with that, and so much more physicalized actions with that, that feels stylistic, and that, feels dance fightish, and you can get really creative and it can get really fun. But then you throw, West Side Story on our stage, which we did. It was really well done. Uh, did you ever see it on our
No,
stage?
that
Okay.
is like a close second to Grease in stuff that I kind of want to like start up more with
Um,
person.
TJ Dawson of 3D Theatricals, he directs all over regionally, but he directed that, and it was really well done. Um, there is something lacking when you've got an intimate stage. We've done everything on our stage, but uh, yeah, that's one of the things that is going to be your biggest your biggest pushback and comp and what's the word I'm looking for? It it's gonna, what's the word I'm looking for?
I'm trying to figure it out. So
Conflict. And that's going to be the biggest conflict there, is trying to come up with choreo that works for the show, works for the size of the stage. I mean, it's tricky. It is really tricky.
right,
So yeah, that's a contender of, okay, how are we going to do this?
right.
Yeah.
Um, something you mentioned that with the size of the stage. I also equate that to my review style when it comes to smaller theaters versus something like Segerstrom or Pantages,
Yeah.
where I'm also more lenient on smaller theater productions than I
Yeah.
am on big theater productions, similar
Yeah.
to when I review independent film versus a blockbuster.
Right.
Like I just interviewed somebody for they're making a gothic horror version of Snow White, and their
I know.
entire budget was $750,000 out
Wow.
of Seattle, and it's called The Death of Snow White.
Oh, wow.
And then Disney's doing a remake, semi live action,
Yes.
semi CG,
Yeah.
that's costing what's estimated to be $450 million because of reshoots and
Yep.
tech and everything else.
Yeah. They had to redo everything.
Yeah. So obviously, knowing that they only had 20 days and three-quarters of $1 million to make this gothic horror versus the mega blockbuster finance of what Disney's putting, I can't judge them on the same scale. So similar with
Right.
ACT, with your theater hosting 170 plus seats versus Segerstrom that hosts 2,500 seats,
Yeah.
I'm expecting two different types of shows and performances. One, I'm a lot more
Yeah.
closer. The other one, it has a different sound quality,
Yeah.
things of that
Yeah.
sort. And I'm
Yeah.
saying that for Segerstrom because I just recently saw Back to the Future over there. And
Mm.
and they had a DeLorean on stage that at one
Yep.
point they figured out how to make it fly on stage.
Yeah.
I don't expect Lyceum Theater to figure out how, one, to get a DeLorean into the theater,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
two, to make a car fly.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, that's what's brilliant about live theater, is you can get it in every size you want, and it oftentimes it has nothing to do with the acting. It has everything to do with budget and production value, which does have everything to do with who you can hire in, and the top designers, and how much you can throw um, at props and scenery and costumes, So I love all that stuff. I love the spectacle. And when I throw, $200 at a Broadway show, or a tour, or something, of that nature that comes around, a regional theater show that has buku bucks. If I throw that much money at it, I'm going to expect a lot, and I'm going to expect the spectacle. Um, when I go to a smaller theater, whether it be an equity, a smaller theater, or equity waiver, which doesn't really exist anymore, but semi-professional, all the way up to a show over at SCR. I do expect the acting to be great at all of those levels.
Mhm.
I do.
Right. But the performances through ACT and
And you
through
should
Vanguard
expect the
itself
acting to be
have
great.
been fantastic as well. I'm just a more intimate storytelling based version of
Yeah.
what you'll put on through
Yeah.
ACT and through Vanguard University is something different than I'd expect from Segerstrom
Yes.
that just had Back
Yeah.
to the Future.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed.
Because you have to have that spectacle aspect for a stage that big.
Yeah.
Whereas with ACT and what you guys are doing at Vanguard with a smaller theater, I expect more of an intimate performance.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just all great. I just love live theater. It's just there's nothing like it.
You said that you found the balance between teaching, directing, and being a mother. Did your children go into the arts, or did one of them just say, forget all of this, I'm going to become an engineer and just go straight applied sciences, or what we like to call STEM now? And I really wish I was the guy that came up with the acronym of STEM,
I
because
know.
all he did was just change the name of applied sciences and
Yeah.
create an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I'm like,
Yes.
that's applied sciences. And
Yes.
he got paid buku bucks to change the name. I am jealous of that person eternally.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wonder if he gets paid every time somebody says the word STEM.
He
Um,
copywrote it.
yeah. Um,
Or is that
yeah,
too personal of a question?
I had three kids
Okay.
and one of them is a professional director, and he went to Boston Conservatory, the most expensive conservatory for the arts in the whole world. And and he was on a track, as a triple threat performer to go to New York and start acting in musicals and singing and dancing his way through musicals. But somewhere along the line, he decided he really doesn't want that. He wants to be more he performance um uh he wants to be more of a performative director. So devised works is a big thing with him. Creating his own content with collaboration with the cast. He does it really well. And the physicality of all of that is pretty amazing with viewpoints and everything added in. Um, yeah, so he does that, and he's in Minneapolis. And then my other two kids, my younger boy and my daughter, they are not in the arts at all. I forced them to be in a couple of my shows when they were little, but to a point where my youngest son finally said, I won't be in any of your shows any longer. And I said, okay, that's great. That is not what you want, clearly. So they are not in the arts, but they love that. They love coming to see. Um, they're big film people, and they love coming to see live theater as well. So yeah,
I always wonder because people use the arts as an escape
yeah,
from everyday life, but your
yeah, for
everyday
sure.
life is the arts.
Yeah,
What's your escape from everyday life if your life is art?
that's another good question. I work a lot. I work a lot. And I love my work. But to escape, I live up in Rancho Mission Viejo, and so we have a 6-passenger golf cart. And then I'm part of the golf cart culture. I just go tooling around up here, and it looks, it looks like wilderness up here. And um yeah, I just like going to really good coffee shops, and I like good chats between one and two people, small groups. I'm pretty introverted actually. And I just love watching films, and that's kind of what I just do. I like being alone too. I just like the really small things in life. The things that don't cost a lot of money. I've done I headed up two um uh what do you call them? Study abroads to Italy, and I also did one on my own in England with the British American Drama Academy. So I've done that traveling thing, and I'm not done with that, but I just like the little things in life.
I like it. Professor, let's remind everybody Footloose is coming to Vanguard University in February. February 20th is opening night. Two shows Saturday, a matinee at 2 o'clock, and then 7:30 in the evening. What can we expect from your iteration of Footloose? And where will we be able to get tickets for that? And also, if a student wants to apply to the program, when does the admissions application open up for students wanting to apply to Vanguard University?
Students can apply all year long, and it's always on a constant rotation. It's always open. And as far as tickets goes to our Vanguard shows, vanguardtickets.com. And for our ACTC shows, you can still go to vanguardtickets.com, or you can go to actctickets.com and find the information for tickets. You can also call 714-668-6147. I think I got that number right. You can call the box office. And this is in Costa Mesa, California. Yeah. So Footloose is just going to be, one really, really fun show. It's got actual story to it, an actual arc. You've got a town that goes through this mad, crazy, stifling energy to, something else at the end, being freed up, and a lot of people changing their viewpoints, their strict, viewpoints on things as benign as just dancing in groups together. So the choreo, there's going to be a lot of choreo and great choreo because it's Nicole Snelson. So there'll probably be much more choreo than they're typically used to seeing even in this show.
Wow. Professor Susan Berkompas, and
Berkompas, yeah.
yes, Berkompas, thank you. Listen, forgive me if I butcher your last name. This is the first time I've ever met anybody with the last name Berkompas, so forgive me for that. But thank you so much for your time today. Footloose, February 20th, opening night at Vanguard University. The program is growing continuously. Congratulations. The university is right across the street from the Orange County Fairgrounds and right next door to the police station. So no shenanigans on campus if you come visit. Where can we find everything on social media, whether it's ACT or Vanguard? And the
you can on social media, you can go to the Lyceum Theater, at the Lyceum Theater. Everything is in there at Lyceum Theater.
Spelled Lyceum, and is theater ER or RE?
Theater. Yep. Yeah, it's the American spelling.
Okay, got to make sure on that. So because when I review live theater, I use the French spelling RE, and then when I use movie theater, I use ER. That's my personal use for
it. It used to be where the ER spelling was the building itself, and the RE spelling was the art form, but you can delineate it however you want.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Everybody uses it,
We're all over the place.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate it so much.
And I will be seeing you in February for Footloose.